Hello everyone and welcome to Position Specific and welcome to our Coaching Journey 2, which is with a under-15s youth development phase team in the USA playing at a grassroots level. Really appreciate all the comments and likes that you guys have given us over the last few weeks and the feedback around the Coaching Journey 2. We really enjoy doing this type of content and having a real delve into kind of what we get up to with our teams. So I really appreciate your feedback. I hope you guys are learning a little bit from it. We certainly are, especially with some of the comments that we have and messages that we get around how we can adapt sessions and how we can do things differently, which is great. And that's what we're all about. We're all about connecting and finding different ideas to help players and coaches develop. So really appreciate that. So we are up to week 5 now of this particular coaching journey. Just got 2 items to show you this week in terms of the content. I was really well aware of last week's coaching journey running a little bit too long. So we've just got 2 items to show you this week, which is we've got session 3 to go through, which is obviously session 3 of our 4-week plan leading into our regional tournament in Hawaii. So we'll go through that, and then we've got a systems of play 11v11 game, which we will have a look at as well. And I really want to go into a little bit of detail around the systems of play that we use and how we link that to our game model and how we use that in terms of our style of play as well. So hopefully that will be interesting for you guys to see how we do that and how we do things at Position Specific. But let's get into exactly what's going to happen in this particular coaching journey part of week 5. So session 3 was an in-possession session with a focus of attacking transition. Like I mentioned before, when you have a focus of transition somewhere, whether it's attacking or defending, you usually get both parts of it as well. So just bear that in mind when we get into it. But we have 4 practices to go through. So like always, whenever we do a practice, we have some individual development at the start. In this particular case, we have a twisting and turning technical practice, which I'll go through in a second. We then move that into a practice 2, which was a rondo, a little 2v1 rondo, which both practices link to the attacking transition. I'll explain that when we get to it. And then we've got 2 practices around attacking transition, 2 skill practices around attacking transition. So we've got practice 3 and 4 to look at as well. And then we'll get into the systems of play 11v11 training practice that we do regularly. And we've done this regularly with these boys here in the US for the 2 years that I've been helping coaching them. This has been a regular kind of fixture that we do for the boys, and we found it really beneficial. So I hope you guys do too, and hope it gives you an idea of something that that you could try with your team as well. But we do effectively, and I explain everything when we go along and we get there. But we do 5 little games of playing 11v11 in different systems, and I explain exactly why we do it and how we do it, etc. as we get to that later on. Okay, so session 3, main focus is attacking transition. Like I mentioned before, the first 2 practices do have an effect on that and do lead into it, even though we're working on some individual development, but I'll get into that in a second. But it's all about possessing the ball or progressing the ball, and we'll talk a little bit about that language and how it works when we get into the bones of attacking transition. When we get to those 2 skill practices, I'll go into a little bit of the detail around attacking transition and what it means to us in our game model. But first of all, what we did was we had a couple of a technical practice and a skill practice from our foundation model. So the first one was all around 1v1 front and side pressure, which was in practice 1. So again, linking this all back to the brilliant basics in terms of all the kind of little skills and actions that we do with our young players all around the different types of 1v1. So whether that's 1v1 with the defenders in front of you, 1v1 with the defenders at the side of you, or 1v1 where the defender is applying back pressure. So we're focusing on the 1v1 take-ons, front and side pressure for this particular practice, but we're actually just going to focus on the final 4 down at the bottom there. So all the twisting and turning with the insides and outsides of both feet is the main part of this practice. And basically, we're going to do this because we feel as though, like in attacking transition, at times when you're pressing and defending and you win the ball back, there's those moments where you have to twist and turn, you have to protect the ball, you have to get your body in, and you have to find your way into space. And then obviously then you can set up the attacking transition in terms of passes to your teammates. But for us it's really like it's rare that, well, it's not rare, but we find that players end up dribbling in the transitions and finding the way into space with the ball or moving with the ball in transitions more than passing. So that's why we kind of work on this stuff moving towards into our main part of the session, and it works really well around attacking transition. And again, for us at Position Specific, individual development is absolutely key. Like, we wouldn't do sessions without it. And I think the especially over here in the US, a lot of the players are really benefiting from these little technical practices leading into skill practices that we do. And it's really helping them ultimately enjoy the game more. Obviously, it's enhancing the performance, but they're enjoying the game more because they're more comfortable on the ball. Once they're more comfortable on the ball, we find that brings the head up and they're able to scan a lot more because they're not too worried about receiving the ball, etc. So it's been really beneficial for the kids over here. And it was when we've worked in professional clubs back in the UK as well. So that's one of the big reasons why we're a big advocate for it in terms of individual development. Okay, so getting into the first practice, so a little technical practice and a real straightforward practice. We did this slightly different, and I'll get into that than the video is going to show you. But effectively, all it is it's all around the twisting and turning. Effectively, as you can see here, so the two whites down the bottom of the page. One of them's going to start the practice off, as you can see there in the as the video starts to play. But they're just going to dribble up to the cone in front of them. The white defender in the middle on the middle cone there is going to come across and apply passive pressure. The player on the ball is just going to twist and turn away from that passive pressure, as you can see here. And then after that, what we did was we just passed into the group at the top, and then the practice started again. So I know in that video there, it shows the player doing two twists and turns and then getting to the top and passing it back, but we actually did one twist of turn, then we passed into the other group, and then that player who passed into the group actually became the defending player, or the passive defending player. And we just thought that in attacking transition, if you win the ball back in that 1v1 50-50 duel, then you'll have to twist and turn, and then you'll have to make a pass straight away. So that's the reason we did one twist and turn and a pass, and then obviously we worked through all the twist and turns in terms of right foot and left foot, insides and outsides. We used a medium-sized area for this, which was 20 yards long by 10 yards wide, and you'll see the setup in a second. We had about 5 or 6 players in each area, so we set this up twice to accommodate all the players and accommodate them having lots of actions. And as you can see there, they had 16 actions each overall, so they did 4 reps per skill. Which took around, with breaks and everything and kind of explaining how it works, it took around probably about 12 to 15 minutes rather than the 8 to 12 that you can see there. But let's see the boys doing this for real. And as I said here, and some of this is a lot of this is all about the footwork and getting the footwork right, and use the insides and outsides of the feet and using both feet. But as you can see, just dribble up to that cone, quick twist and turn with the body in between, and then a sharp pass at the end of it, and then that player then becomes the passive defender, and the practice continues. But like I mentioned before, we always talk to the boys about getting your body in and getting turned around in two or three touches if possible, and then having a real sharp pass at the end of it. So moving on to the left foot as well. So, and we just relate it back to footwork, because as you saw there, when the boys were using the right foot to turn, they were using the left foot to pass, whereas in this one they're using the left foot to turn and then the right foot to pass, and that's really key as well, and sorting your feet out and being able to shift the ball onto both feet, especially in the transitions when things happen really quickly, and a lot of the time happening in the chaos of the game as well. So onto insides now, as you can see, just a little twist and turn with the insides of the feet, and then again, so like insides of the feet here with the right foot, and then a good right foot pass at the end of it. So when we go on to the left foot, which you'll see now, is that they'll do a left foot pass as well. So again, that's hugely important to me in terms of the footwork and being able to use both feet, being able to shift the ball from one foot to another, including using the insides and outsides of the feet. Okay, so what we did from there is we took it into a little practice, a little skill practice, again within the foundation model, all around 2v1s in terms of a little rondo. But as you see, like this, and this is how we link this now to attacking transition. So this looks like a 2v1 in possession rondo, but actually what we did is, like we mentioned before, when you're working on transitions, usually, so we're working on attacking transitions, so that means you have to start with the defending side of the game. Same as if we're working on defensive transition, we always start with the ball so that you go to that transition that you're actually focused on. And lots of coaches make that mistake. And I've been there myself, where when I'm working on defensive transition, but I start with the opposition in possession, and not start with the ball, or working on attacking transition and we start with the ball, my team starts with the ball, and then we actually end up don't get that actual exact transition that we want. So in this particular one, it's just a normal. So you have two teams, as you can see from the setup there on the screen, and one team. So the red team's going to try and keep possession. The white player is going to try and defend and nick the ball, and then when he nicks the ball, he's got to find a way to get the ball to his teammate in the other square, and then he'll transfer back, and then one of the reds will come and defend with him. So again, in these little moments here, like from the twisting and turning we've just done in the little technical practice, this is what it's all about now. So in these small squares now, we usually find that the players will win the ball, and then they'll need a little to find a little bit of space, and then obviously pass to the teammate, and that's where the twisting and turning, using both feet, using the different parts of the feet, really comes into play in these tight areas where transition happens, especially if you're a high pressing team and you're getting after a team and you put them under pressure and you're getting that first contact when defending, and you steal the ball back, and then it's about finding that little bit of space and releasing it to one of your teammates. So but in this one as well, is what we did was, if the ball went out of play, so if the ball went out of play off the white player, obviously the reds get it back, vice versa if it's in the other box. But what we did is, if the ball went out of the red players, we actually got the white player to start with it on the top line, effectively. So it'd be in a 1v2 situation, in possession situation, he'd got to try and find a way to his teammate. So we used the medium-sized area for this 10 by 10. Experiment with the area sizes on this, because if you've got real high quality players, then they might keep the ball for a long time. So you've just got to be aware of that. And we had moments in this, like, because the boys are a good level over here. So there's a couple of periods where they kept it for quite a while and stuff, but there was plenty of changes over, so we did get that little transition moment. So 4 players in each area. We set this up I'm only going to show you one, but we set this up about 2 or 3 times, so that all the boys got lots of actions, and we just played 3 games of 3 minutes. So 3 minutes on the clock, and then obviously they just kept playing for 3 minutes, and obviously had the turnovers and changeovers, etc. in that, and that took about 12 to 15 minutes. But again, like linking it to the attacking transition, let's have a look at the boys doing it for real. But again, what you'll see here is some good little moments in terms of the attacking transition. So let's have a look at the setup first. So this is how it works. So as you can see here, 2 reds are going to start it off against that 1 blue player. As you can see, he nicks it, a little bit of twisting and turning, good little pass into his teammate, and then they're going to keep it as well. And what we said to the boys as well is, like, if you nick it and you're able to play and keep it to your teammate, let's pause it there. If you nick it get it to your teammate, then from there, can you keep it for a further 2 or 3 passes? And that's kind of how we work around attacking transition, which I'll get to in a second. And that's kind of that progress and that possess, but I'll talk about in a little bit more detail as well. So, and what you get in this practice as well is, like I said before, like, you're always working both transitions. So as you saw there was a couple of little bits of good defensive transition as well, which again you can see from there, a couple of little turnovers there, and we always try to get the boys to avoid those like 3-4 turnovers in the space of like 10 seconds. And can you hold on to the ball, and can you possess it? But a couple of good practices to have a look at. So this particular one here, so as you'll see here, so when the blue player wins the ball from the 2 oranges, so as you can see, they're keeping good possession. As soon as he wins it here now, he's able to twist and turn and find a little way out. So again, there, look, so twisting and turning, right foot to left foot, and then a good pass to his teammate, and then obviously they end up holding onto it for 3 or 4 passes, which is always what we're looking for. Now, in these small areas, there's going to be lots of mistakes. There's actually going to be lots of turnovers, but if you can get that, win it and keep it for 3 or 4 passes, that's perfect. Another good example here, so see how we started on the end line there from the oranges winning it. So again, he's found a clever little dink pass to his teammate, and then again they've then kept it for 3 or 4 passes, which is what we always look for in attacking transition. Okay, so let's get into the main focus of this particular session, all around attacking transition, and the 2 skill practices we've got to look at for that. And this is all around possessing or progressing, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about that and that language on the next couple of slides. But first of all, just a reminder of our game model and the 4 phases that we like to work around, and obviously trying to control the opposition in all of these 4 phases. of the game, and ultra important in this is controlling the two transitions, because the two transitions are key to everything. So especially in terms of winning the ball back quickly, but then when you win it back in attacking transition, you'll never be able to get back into the attacking organisation and a lot of the good stuff that you do if you don't control that attacking transition and obviously keep possession of the ball once you've won it back. So as you can see here, so from that bottom left hand corner, in terms of attacking transition, we use a language of protect, possess and progress, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. And we have obviously have a little target around each of those. So protect and possess is obviously keeping possession, and we want to keep possession for 3+ passes when we win it back, and we want to be able to do that 80% of the time. Or we want to progress, and we'll talk about the decision making between the two in a second. But obviously that progress means advancing into the attacking half of the pitch or the penalty area, and again we want to do that 80% of the time as well. But let's get into some real detail around attacking transition and what it means to us here at Position Specific. So like I said before, we use that language of protect, possess and progress, or the 3 Ps, and we'll go into that in a second. But when are we in attacking transition? Well, effectively, as soon as we win possession of the ball anywhere on the pitch, so that can be from defensive transition. So if we step forward and win the ball quickly within that defensive transition, then obviously you can go straight into attacking transition, or it could be from an organised state of the game or defensive organisation, whether you're in a high press or a low press. There's some point where you're going to win the ball back and then it becomes attacking transition. So what we want to do in that is we want to achieve 3 passes anywhere on the pitch, so have a bit of controlled possession, or we'll force the opposition to give us a dead ball situation, whether that's a goal kick, a free kick or a throw-in or a corner. What are our objectives? Well, effectively our objectives is to use attacking transition to get into attacking organisation, and then we can get into our playing out phase, which is moving the ball into the attacking half of the pitch, and playing in, which is moving the ball into the opposition's 18-yard box. And like I mentioned before, our target is to have 80% of maintaining possession for 3 passes. Now, for us, especially for me here, so we obviously have it in this particular order of protect. So, and that relates back to the technical and skill practice we did at the start of the session. And that talks about kind of the twisting and turning and moving the ball out of pressure or out of that pressure zone or forcing a foul, so getting your body and protecting it and shielding it, having a little bit of a dribble into space and then finding a teammate for a pass. Yes, it does happen where you win it and you pass it straight away, like if it's an interception and you're in a little bit of space, you might win it and pass, but usually what we find is that players get control and then they'll have to move with the ball a little bit to then obviously get into some space. So we use protect first in terms of like that. It could be individual, it could be a team. And then for us, we use possess. So that's obviously getting control of possession of the ball and maintaining those 3 passes and ultimately finding the free play. So in attacking transition, we talk a lot about playing back into our overload, and that relates really well into the systems of play, which I'll get into later on in this coaching journey. But we talk about playing back into our overload, which is usually in our defensive line or playing sideways away from the chaos of the middle of the pitch, just to get control of the ball and then allow us to get that 3 passes. And what we usually find is that 3 passes completely takes away that initial defensive transition of the opposition, that initial press that they go for, to trying to win the ball back. If we can keep it for those 2 or 3 passes, we usually find that then we're able to get into our attacking organisation phase and obviously build from there. From there, we obviously look to progress, and obviously that means to look to play forward, high impact, low risk. That could be a pass or a dribble. And for other players, making themselves available away from the ball. So that might be making a run for the player on the ball. So, and sometimes, like obviously, when you win the ball back close to the opposition's goal, in and around the penalty area or on the final third, then obviously progress becomes the kind of the priority, if you like. But like as I said before, I prefer to go for possess first and then progress. If you're a coach and you can flip those 2 around, that's no issue. You can progress first, and then if you can't progress, you can possess. And there obviously it goes between the 2, and like we always talk to the players about making that decision. But for us, it's more about getting control of the ball, possessing it, getting those 3 passes, and then doing what actually we're really good at, which is the attacking organisation part of the game. And I feel the boys here that I'm working with are actually like really good in those moments of playing out and playing in. So for us to get control of the ball and get possession, we find we have more success doing that. But again, like I said before, like the boys have license that if they win it in the final third or penalty area, they can go for goal, they can try and progress. But obviously there's a couple of moments like where if you win it in your own defensive third or you win it in the middle of the pitch, then there's a choice to make. And sometimes it's a really interesting one, attacking transition. I mean, you can stick in the comments what you guys think of it and stuff, but sometimes when you watch Man City, you see there's opportunities for them to progress straight away, and they don't, and the build up a little bit slower. Or sometimes when they're driving forward in that kind of win it and progress kind of moment, then sometimes they'll slow down and they'll just keep possession, and it's to do with allowing the defensive line to come up to the pitch, or come up the pitch with them, come up to the halfway line, so then they're ready to defend. So inevitably, when you're in attacking organisation, you're going to give the ball away at some point, and it's how ready you are to defend. And we want to defend where we're set for defensive transition, and we're set to win the ball back straight away, so we can maintain attacks. So sometimes, like, it's that possess, we find it better for us. But even in progress, and we win it and we start flying forward, and we haven't quite got an overload situation or equal number situation, so we might just slow it down, allow our defensive line to come up, and then we'll start playing in from there and building attacks from there. But it's a really interesting one, is attacking transition. That's how it works for us. That's how we do quite well with it, and hopefully you'll see some good examples of that when we get into the games as well. But okay, for now, so let's move into the practice number 3, which is a skill practice again. So this practice is all around having that decision of whether you possess it or whether you progress it. So this little practice, which we actually brought this out on Friday on our YouTube channel, is a little bit more of an in-depth kind of look at it. So this fits really well with this coaching journey. So if you want to check out that on our YouTube channel, then you can do. So there's lots of different ways to play this. We play it slightly differently. And we actually played it in this particular session slightly differently to how it looks in that session on Friday. But effectively, this is a positional game. Like I mentioned before, I love these games for transition. I think the fantastic. Well, actually, for not just for transition, but for all the phases of the game. But in particular, transition. I think these are fantastic. And if you're not into these, get into these, because the players like them, because it's competitive, it's tight. And like I said, you can coach all the moments of the game in this as well, and I just think they're brilliant. So anyway, this particular practice, so as you can see here, the area is split into two. We had in this picture here, we've got two teams of 6. On the day, we actually had 13 players, so we had an extra floating player, so we actually played 7v3 instead of 6v3. Like you guys know, you'll be adapting to your sessions all the time, especially because of the numbers and stuff. But in this one, obviously, there's 4 goals, so there's 2 goals in each half. And the idea is that obviously the team starts in possession, so the Reds start in possession here. They're going to try and get 6 passes for a goal and move it around their area. The Whites are just going to try and work together and win possession. As soon as they win possession, then they can play straight back into their 3 players in the other half, as you can see right now. And then those players have got a choice. So they can either exchange a pass and score in the goals, or they can choose to keep possession. So you get that kind of progress or possess kind of decision making and situation in terms of the attacking transition that we're going after. How we played this at first is, like, I actually recommend probably when the ball gets transferred over, exchanging a pass and then scoring. It just gives the defensive team a little bit of a chance to react in defensive transition and get over. We actually played it where you could play straight across, and if you were close to the goal, you could score straight away, or you could make that decision whether you possess it, and then obviously when your team come back, you get in your shape, and then you play from there. So and there will be moments, and you'll see some moments of good practice in the video that I'm about to show you, where the boys are in good positions to score, and then the boys are in not quite a good position, or the defensive team reacted really well and got across, and it's not on to score, and they keep possession and start building from there. But brilliant game to go after the transitions, and you could use this game for, like I said, all the 4 phases, but especially in the transitions, it's brilliant for defensive transition as well as attacking transition. Like I said, you get both anyway when you're working on transitions or you have a focus. So we used a medium-sized area, so 40 yards long, 20 yards in width. So both of those areas are 20 by 20s. Like I mentioned before, ideally it's a perfect session with 12 players, and we had 13, so we just had an extra floating player. And we played 3 games at 4 minutes, which took around probably took a little bit longer, but 12 to 15 minutes is probably about your regular kind of time. Okay, so let's have a look at the boys doing this for real. So we'll just have a quick look first at the setup. And as you can see here, and how it all works and stuff. So as you see here, so the Blues are going to start in possession. Oranges are obviously trying to win the ball back and then play that back to their teammates. And as you see, try and get the Oranges to work together as well. So have that little bit of defensive organisation and get them to work. But as you can see here, so good little bit of defensive transition there from the Blues, initially kind of losing it. But you'll see here when the Oranges win it. So like I said, it's gone out off the Blues players there. So I gave it to the Oranges in the same area that they were transitioning from. So they still had that kind of get the way out of that of situation, like you've just seen with the Blues there. So a great pass, and he's obviously able to finish. So let's have a look at a couple of good practices. So this particular good practice is all about progressing. So like you just saw from a couple of examples there, so you'll see the Oranges win the ball back. So they don't get it quite with this first attempt there, which is arguably good defensive transition from the Blues. But again, like the ball goes out here off the Blues, so I give it to the Oranges in that same area to find the way out. So good little bit of individual skill, good pass, and obviously he finds the goal. So he's made that decision to progress. This is a really good example of possess, and this is a real good decision making from the kid on the ball here. It's really, really good. So as you'll see here, the Oranges are keeping it, Blues win it. So as you can see here, the Oranges actually react really quickly, and he doesn't have the best touch, but then he decides to possess it. So he keeps the ball, so he gets his teammates back, they all get in shape. Again, he does a little bit of good individual work right that we did at the start, and now they're in shape and able to keep it. So from possession there, as you can see, just pausing it a second there, as you can see from that possession there, so he made the decision he couldn't score, which was great. He held onto the ball in terms of individuals, obviously completed 2 passes while his team were getting back in the shape, and then once they completed the third, they get in the shape, and then they're in total control, and they actually managed to keep it from 6 passes from there as well. So 2 real good examples of that kind of progress and score, or win it and possess it. And like I mentioned before, like majority of the time in this particular team, we prefer to possess it. So we prefer to get control of the ball, get those 3 passes, allow us to get into our attacking organisation shape, which is key. And then obviously we'll play from there, and we'll either play out and play in, and try and build from there. And we found that's the best policy for us. But you could be the team that or wants to counter attack or wants to go for it as soon as you win it. That's fine. Just flip those around. So it's progress first before possess. But like I said, brilliant practice, brilliant drill for you guys to work on the transition moments of the game, and you can do that either way, and you get both anyway. But that was great for us in terms of attacking transition. Okay, so from there we moved into practice 4, and again a little skill practice, and I'll explain a little bit of how we had the possess or progress decision making in this as well, but this is just a little bit of fun for the boys at the end of the session as well, and they love these types of practices. So really straightforward. We did it slightly different to what this video is about to show you, because it actually starts with a 1v1. But this is a classic kind of one team starts the practice off, and they play a 1v1, and then the other team, as soon as that's finished, the other team brings the ball out. Someone else joins in from the opposite team, and it becomes a 2v2, and then once that's finished, the opposite team bring the ball out, and someone else joins in as well, and makes it a 3v3. So it's just those quick reactions of going from 1v1 to 2v2 to 3v3, really sharp, as quick as you can, and then once we get to the 3v3, we stop it and then we start again. We didn't do the 1v1 bit in this, we just went straight 2v2 and 3v3, and our area looked a little bit different, which you'll see in a second. So we had the main goal in and around the penalty area, and then we had 2 mini goals at the opposite end for the opposition to play. And you'll see in a second how we worked it. Now we again, like I mentioned, we had 13 players, so we did a real tight area on this. So we actually did the smallest area of 24 yards long and 20 wide. We had 13 players, so one of them's a goalkeeper, so he went in goal, and we had 2 teams of 6, and we actually played about 12 games at 1 minute. So each game lasted, each game of 2v2 3v3 lasted between 40 seconds and 1 minute. So we just played 12 little games of those, which lasted 12 to 15 minutes with the breaks in between. But let's have a look at the boys doing this live, and I'll as I go along, I'll explain how we kind of got the possess or progress decision making within here as well. So as you can see here from the setup, so you'll see here, so the blue team start the practice off from the far end on the big goal, and they try and build up 2v2. They can actually use the goalkeeper, so they could have a 3v3 if they want, and then obviously they're trying to score in the mini goals here at the start. And then obviously when the ball goes out of play, which it did there, then one of the oranges joins in with the ball and makes it a 3v3. So just before we get into the good practices, so this. In fact, I'll just move it on a little bit and then I'll just pause it when it comes up. So this is how we kind of got that progress or possess kind of decision making. So what happened here was like, so for the blue, for obviously like I mentioned before, when you're working on attacking transition, it's important that the teams start out of possession. So for the oranges here, in this 2v2 or 2v3 if you want to call it with the goalkeeper, when they win possession, they are obviously going to try and progress and score straight away. So now then, if they have it and the Blues win it back in that 2v2, or if the Blues win it back in the 3v3, then obviously they've got that chance to possess it and then get into attacking organisation and build up. So and they can use the goalkeeper for that as well. And we're just going to see a couple of good examples of that here. So as you can see, the Blues are starting with it and they're trying to build up and score. Really good from the Oranges, good press, able to win it and score straight away. And then we'll see a good example here of the Blues winning possession just now, hopefully, and obviously getting control of the ball, it went back to the goalkeeper, so he's got control of it, and then they're going to try and get those 2 or 3 passes here and build up. And obviously they're straight into that attacking organisation. And as you can see here, they're in total control of the ball as well, even against those 3. Obviously, it doesn't quite work out in a goal in that one, but you get the idea. So again, another example here of how it starts. The Blues are starting with a 2v2. So as you can see here, Oranges win it and go to score straight away. Actually does really well here after a bad touch, but managed to get a goal, a little bit of composure. That's what we're looking for from the Oranges. And then another good example here for in particular the Blues now. So when the Oranges eventually give up the ball and the Blues start attacking here. So here, like now we're looking at the Oranges. So the goalkeeper's got the ball. So now we're looking to complete those 2-3 passes. All right, and obviously look to possess and look to build up, which is the 2's there, then the 3, and then obviously this should have been a goal, but like what happens with kids all the time, a little bit of lapse of concentration. But again, so even a little game like that where it's like a 2v2 into a 3v3, you can still have those moments. And the way we played it in terms of like the team that was attacking the big goal, were always looking to progress and score, and the team that were attacking the little goals, if they won possession in the second part, then they could progress it and use the goalkeeper as that overload. And like I talked about before, that playing backwards and sideways to possess as well. Okay guys, so let's get into this systems of play and how we link those systems of play to our game model, and then obviously the 11v11 training practice that we did with the boys. So just quickly, I just want to bring up the game model once again, just to kind of talk about why we talk about the systems of play, and we'll get into the different systems of play that we kind of use from this. So like it says in the middle there, we want to control the opposition in all 4 phases of the game. Now majority of the time we'll play 4-3-3, or when defending we'll play 4-2-3-1, and that's kind of our go-to system or our default system. That's what we train in all the time. That's what we do in most of our sessions. We'll train around that system. But obviously, like there's moments of the game against other systems where it's really difficult to control each of those phases. And I'll give you an example. For example, in attacking organisation, if we're playing 4-3-3 and the opposition's playing a 3-5-2 and they're high pressing and they're aggressive with it, then that kind of +2 that you've got on your defensive line with your goalkeeper, if you're playing against another 4-3-3, kind of goes away, and then obviously you're more or less man-to-man on your defensive line if they're high and aggressive. Same numbers in midfield, and obviously like same numbers on your attacking line as well, and your goalkeeper's the only +1, so that kind of forces you into a little bit of longer passing. And I don't know if like majority of you watched England today, but in the second half of the England-Serbia game today, that's kind of what happened. Plus as well, like when in open play as well, obviously it can affect your transitions as well. So again, a good example of that was England playing Serbia today, with Serbia playing a 3-5-2. Sometimes when it turned over in the transition, then England players were a little bit further away from them because of the system that they were playing. So we try to avoid that, and I'll get into the systems in a second, but it all goes back to our game model and trying to control the opposition in all these 4 phases of the game. So how we link that to the systems of play and linking it to our game model, again, I'll get into the systems in a minute, but I just wanted to make the point clear that we don't change our system for the opposition. Instead, we change our system to maintain control throughout these 4 phases. So I spoke to lots and lots of coaches about this before, and they were a little bit like, well, I don't really want to train my team in lots of systems, and I don't really want to change for the opposition. I want us to play our way kind of thing. And effectively that's what it's all about, and you don't really need to change or train your team in lots of different systems, and I'll get to that later on in this, but effectively you are doing this to maintain your control without throughout those phases of the game. So you're doing this to keep playing your way. And that's kind of like what we do, and that's like we've had like really good success with it, and it's a real good learning opportunity for the players as well to learn lots of different or learn how to play in lots of different systems, and I'll get to that in a second as well. I think the other thing to mention here as well is like that obviously working at a grassroots level, and even working in academies back home in England, if you've got a team where, if you're playing at professional level, so if you're playing in the Premier League or the Championship, the analysis you've got available in terms of like what the opposition are going to do is like phenomenal. Obviously you've got loads of it, and you've got 2 or 3 days to prep for each team, so effectively you can stay in your same system, you can stay in the same system all the time, and you've got those days to prep, you've got the analysis, you can kind of go in with your game plan, knowing exactly what the opposition are going to do and exactly how you're going to deal with it. When you're playing at levels where you don't do too much analysis before games in terms of the opposition because it's not available to you, and you might only have one training prep day or one training session available to you before your game, then this is what works for us in terms of like when we turn up to a game, we don't know what the opposition are going to play a lot of the time. Obviously, when you play teams multiple times through a season, you have an idea of what they could do, but this just takes away a lot of the surprises as well, and kind of those moments where you're in a game and you're a little bit like not quite in control, and it's usually because of the system of play. But let's get into the system. So what we've done is we've broken down in all the systems into 10 systems of play. So this is like 5 systems with 4 players on the defensive line and 5 systems with 3 players on the defensive line. For us, there's no more than this, and I think the one thing to remember is as well is like that you can get caught up in lots of different systems, and for me personally as a coach, just drilling it down into these 10 has been perfect. It's been real good clarity for me as a coach, and I prefer this miles more than having 30 systems which you can get caught up in. So, and I'll give you an example. So, for example, people talk about the 4-5-1 system. Well, that's fine. You can talk about a 4-5-1, no problem. But I prefer to call that an adaptation of a 4-2-3-1. People might talk about a 4-4-1-1. Which is great. I prefer to talk about that as an adaptation of 4-4-2, and etc. etc. So you kind of lose all these adaptations of the systems, and you just break it down into these 10, and these 10 have been absolutely perfect for us here at Position Specific. There's a little bit of an argument now that there could be an 11th system, which would be an extra one with 3 on the defensive line, because of a lot of teams now kind of playing that 3-2-2-3, or having like a little bit of a box in midfield. But we still like to stick with these 10 systems, and it's worked really well for us. So with that in mind, all the 10 systems, they all kind of go together with something else, and it's kind of following that rule that I mentioned before. So always having a +1 on your defensive line, having equal numbers in midfield, and then having a -1 on the attacking line. So each system goes against another system where you can continually to have that rule, and have that kind of that +1, +2 equal numbers and a -1 on your attacking line. So for example here, white team playing 4-3-3, so conventional, 1 defensive midfield player and an 8 and a 10 in higher attacking positions. Again, playing against a 4-2-3-1, where obviously because the whites playing those 2 high attacking midfield positions, then obviously the reds have to adapt to that, and they'll have 2 lower in defensive positions to deal with that. So again, it's just a way of having that +1 equal numbers and -1, but we talk about 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1 separately just because of those dynamics in midfield. So again here, so as you see now, so if the opposition now, so if the red team decided that they were going to go 4-3-3, and a lot of the time when you're playing against a 4-2-3-1 or what it looks like, then obviously like in possession, the teams might push an extra midfielder higher up the pitch, so then you have to adapt. So then you become a 4-2-3-1 to deal with that. Okay, so if we have 4 on our defensive line, if we're playing a 4-4-2, that's because the opposition are playing a 3-4-3. So as you can see there, so on their defensive line, they've got 3 players, and we'll have 2, so that'll be the -1. Again, equal numbers across midfield in terms of those 2 flat 4s. And then obviously we'll have that +1, +2 on our defensive line with their 3 up front. So do you see how the system just fit together, or against another system fits against another system, just to keep those rules going all the time. So if we have 4 on our defensive line, in terms of, and you can look at this as a bit of a diamond, we call it a 4-3-1-2. So if we have 4 players on a defensive line, we have 4 players in midfield, so that 3 and that 1, and then obviously the 2 players up front. That's because the opposition are playing a 1-3-3-1-3. So effectively, again, that's a 3 diamond 3. You can look at it like that. So they've got 3 players on the defensive line. They've got 4 players as a diamond in midfield, and then they've got 3 on the attacking line. So that's how we would match up against a 3 diamond 3. And finally, for 4s on the defensive line, so if we end up in a situation where we're playing a 1-4-2-2-2, which is obviously very popular with the Red Bull kind of setup and that counter-attacking setup, and having lots of players in the centre of the pitch to be able to attack in the centre of the pitch, that's because the opposition that we're playing against will be playing that 1-3-3-1-3, but obviously, like, instead of having a bit of a diamond in midfield, it could look like a little bit of a box. So obviously we'd match up that with that 1-4-2-2-2. Okay, moving on to 3 players on our defensive line. So again, like, there's a couple of adaptations here in terms of a 3-5-2. So again, we look at 3-5-2 as 2 separate systems, just because of that dynamic in midfield of 1 defensive midfielder and 2 attacking midfielders, or 2 defensive midfielders and the 1 attacking midfielder. So if we had if we were playing a 1-3-3-2-2, so that's 3 on our defensive line, that's because the opposition will be playing a 1-3-4-1-2. So they would just have those 2 defensive midfielders in midfield, so that would force us into having 2 quite higher attacking midfielders. Again, if they changed in possession, so when they get the ball, if they decide to go a little bit more attacking, in terms of like that 1-3-3-2-2, then we would adapt and be the 1-3-4-1-2. But again, just sticking to those rules: +1, +2 on your defensive line, equal numbers in midfield, and a -1 up front. So again, flip reversal of the if we had to play a 1-3-4-3, that's because the opposition would be playing a 1-4-4-2. If we had to play a 1-3-3-1-3, so again a 3 diamond 3, that's because the opposition are playing a 1-4-3-1-2, so that would effectively be the opposition playing a 4 diamond 2. And then finally, a system that you don't see too much, and you usually see this as like when teams are all out attacking and kind of going for the game, or for example when one of the fullbacks is just staying high at the pitch and one of the wide forwards inverts from a 4-3-3, then it can look a little bit like a 1-3-3-4. But this is usually like when teams are chasing the game and just going for it kind of thing, and you just match up with the same system. Obviously, when you do match up with the same system, that would mean that you're, for in this case, they're looking at the white team, our 7-11 would drop into like that back 5 when they're defending and just cover their 7-11 in terms of how they are attacking. Like that, but we just wanted to put it in that format to show you. So, but again, that's how all the systems kind of match up, keeping that 10 together, and just obviously having a little bit of detail around what matches up against what else, and obviously sticking to those rules of +1, +2 on your defensive line with your goalkeeper, equal numbers in midfield, and then a -1 up front. Well aware that when the game's moving and everything starts, that obviously systems can change all the time, and totally understand that. But as for me as a coach, when the game starts, if I've got a good idea of what the opposition are kind of, what their starting point is and what their starting is, then that's a good reference for me in my head in terms of helping my players adapt if we need to, and helping me understand what they're doing in the 4 phases of the game as well. So like I said, like when the game's going and ball's moving and rolling, everybody moves everywhere. I totally understand that. It's just good to have that starting point for me as a coach in my head. Okay, so like I mentioned before, we use the 1-4-3-3 system as our default system of play, and I'm just going to show you now how we move into 9 of the 10 systems easily. Obviously, the 10th system would be the 4-3-3. So I'm just going to show you how we move from what we're in now into the other systems, and we've gone through this with the boys a lot. Like when we do the 11v11 systems team practice, before each game we play, I show the boys how you would move from a 4-3-3 into another system, just so that they're clear, and obviously we'll help them when it's in a game and stuff, but like I said, it's just good education for the boys. And a lot of the time now, when you've done it for a while, the boys will start to recognise it themselves, and they'll recognise that they might not have that +1, +2 on the defensive lines, so they need and equal numbers in midfield, so they need to change, and they'll kind of have a good idea of what to do. And you might have to help them out with the personnel, and that's what we do, but this is how we adapt. So really straightforward. So when we're playing against a 1-4-2-3-1, then obviously we'll just drop one of our midfielders a little bit deeper, and he'd just cover that attacking midfield player. So that's a really simple kind of move from 4-3-3. Same again when we're talking about a 4-4-2. So again, all we'd do is like our 7-11 would just drop a little bit deeper, and our number 10 would go up front alongside our number 9 or our centre forward to deal with that back three, and obviously that just creates that 4-4-2 for us. If we needed to move into a 1-4-3-1-2, so a 4-diamond-2 effectively, again, real straightforward. So our number 9 would drop, our centre forward would drop into midfield, and our 7-11 would come a little bit tighter up front to obviously manage that back three. Again, obviously our back four would stay exactly the same. Really simple, going from a 4-3-3 into a 1-4-2-2-2. So again, 9 drops into midfield, 7-11 come tighter again up front, back 4 stays exactly the same again. So again, as you can see, a lot of these are majority of the time, real simple changes. Might be different in terms of your personnel and what you've got on the pitch at the time, but this is how kind of we would do it. Okay, so moving from a 4-3-3 into a 3-4-3, again, real simple, one straight move. So our defensive midfielder would drop into the defensive line to help our centre-backs deal with their 2 centre-forwards. Our full-backs, or our 2 and our 3, would just push a little bit further up the pitch and deal with their kind of left and right midfielders, if you call it that, in a 4-4-2. So again, real simple, straightforward little change just to help us out. So this is how we would go into a 1-3-3-1-3, so effectively a 3-diamond-3. Again, a little bit more of a change this time. So our defensive midfielder would drop into the defensive line to create that +1/+2 with our centre-backs and the goalkeeper. Our 2 full-backs would come in onto the sides of the diamond, and our 8 and our 10 would go like as a 1 and a 1, if you want to call it like that. So one a little bit deeper, one a little bit higher, just to deal with their attacking midfielder and their defensive midfielder. And then obviously our front 3 would stay exactly the same. So a little bit more of a change there, but still quite straightforward. So going from a 4-3-3 into a 1-3-3-4, so really simple. So again, like we've just done there, look, so really simple. And what you might find a lot of times in the game, you'll find this kind of system where one of your fullbacks is pushed on, so the other one comes around to cover. But in this particular case, our left fullback, or our number 3, becomes part of the back 3. And our fullback just pushes up higher up the pitch, and midfield stays exactly the same, and our 7 just slides in alongside the number 9. Like I mentioned before, our 2 and our 11 in this situation, in defensive situations, would drop back into a back 5 to deal with their 3 and their 7 high up front. And then finally, how does our 1-4-3-3 move into the 2-3-5-2 system? So a little bit more difficult change in terms of this. So as you can see there, so our left back, our number 3, has just slid in to become part of the back 3 with our 2 centre-backs. Our number 11 has dropped down to be a wing back. Our midfield has stayed exactly the same, and our number 7 has slid up front alongside our number 9 to deal with their back 3. And then very similar, kind of when you go from a 1-4-3-3 into a 1-3-3-2, or obviously with that 3-5-2, having 2 higher attacking midfielders. So again, our left back in this occasion, it could be the other full back, it's completely up to you, is slid in and to make a back 3. Our 11 has dropped again, 7's gone up front, but this time we've just dropped one of our midfielders to as a kind of a double pivot to deal with that obviously attacking midfielder going a little bit higher. So that's how we would move from a 4-3-3 into the other systems, and that's really important that we get that point across to our players of how they move and how they're changing. Again, it's different personnels, and what you usually find is, as well, is like if you can fit the right personnel, then when you are attacking, apart from obviously some of the build-out situations where it could be a 4v3, it could be a 3v2. Apart from some of those build-out situations or those playing-out situations, then you'll still find yourself still slightly attacking in your 4-3-3. So I'll give you an example there. So you'll get what you'll get from that is you'll get your right fullback, obviously like being a little bit higher. You'll get your left fullback, obviously like will push on a little bit in possession and push your 11 on. So you'll still get your 7 and 11 doing those runs that you'd get in 4-3-3, because that really hurts a back three in a 3-5-2. So like I said, if you get your personnel right, then you get a lot of those same kind of 4-3-3 movements and actions, and obviously a lot of the stuff that we work around in a 4-3-3 comes out in a lot of the other different systems as well. So and you'll see a little bit of that when we get into the footage of the boys doing it. Now this for us, obviously we work on this and we when we're doing playing out, and I don't know if you saw a few weeks ago when we did a playing out from the back kind of scenarios kind of session with the boys, and we worked on a lot of kind of like the 2v1 situation with the centre backs and against the number 9. We went into 3v2s where we worked around if the number 10 or the attacking midfielder of the opposition pushes on to press our centre backs. Obviously our defensive midfielder becomes a spare player, and then that looks a little bit like a 3 versus 2, which you get in 3-4-3 against 4-4-2. So we do work on these scenarios all the time, and this links all the way back to our foundation model, and this is our individual development pyramid around in our foundation model, and these are all the scenarios that you get in all those kind of changes of systems. So obviously 1v0, 1v1, 1v2 is the most important in terms of the foundation for the individual, but once you start getting into these other situations now of 2v1 and 1v2, like I mentioned before, that can be 2 centre backs against a number 9 in a back 4. If the number 9 wins it, that becomes the 1v2. The 3v2s, like I mentioned, I've just mentioned one about the 3-4-3 against the 4-4-2, so you'd have that 3v2. You can also get the 3v2s in terms of when you're playing against a 3-5-2. Again, if the 2 win it, becomes a 2v3, and then obviously you get your 4v3 kind of conventional when you're playing 4-3-3 against 4-3-3, and obviously if the 3 win it's a 3v4. So this relates all the way back to our foundation model. So that's why we like to get the kids, the players, when they're really young, obviously working around the individual kind of 1v0, 1v1 and 1v2, but then we like to get them into the little scenarios, and that's fun for kids as well, because most of the time these scenarios are going to goal or going into little goals, and then obviously defending and little transitional moments and stuff like that, and that's why we do it in the foundation, so that the kids are prepped when they get to 11v11 and we start working on these playing out scenarios, and even the equal numbers in midfield and navigating that. Then the players have been doing it for a few years, so we find this works really well for us. It's when we get into some of the games as well, and the analysis of the games, you'll see some of these scenarios coming out as well, which is great for us and for you. Okay, so in terms of a systems of play training exercise and what we did with the players, we like to keep it really simple, and I'll get into some of the rules and conditions in a second, but effectively what we did was we just played 5 games at 10 minutes per game, and we had 2 teams, and we just rolled through some of the different systems that we might come up against and we might face. So again, because we play 4-3-3 all the time and 4-2-3-1, and that's what we play against all the time, and that's what we train in, and that's what we do most of our stuff in, we didn't do obviously those 2 systems. We left alone the 3-3, the 1-3-3-4 as well, just because it's like more of a kind of a system that you go to when you're chasing the game a little bit. So we didn't want to play a game in those systems. So these are the ones we selected to do, just because we felt that these are the likelihood of the systems that we will see majority of the time against the teams that we play against. Bear in mind that majority of the teams here play 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, so you might not even get some of these, but it's good to practice and in these systems and get the boys used to being able to play in these systems as well if we need to. So effectively we had an orange team and a yellow team. And we played 5 games. Now, bear in mind that 2 of the games, or 3 of the games, are effectively just changing the system over and stuff. So, for example, the first game we played, the orange team played a 1-4-3-1-2, so a 4-diamond 2, against the yellow team who played a 1-3-3-1-3, so a 3-diamond 3. In the second game, we flipped that, so the orange team then played a 1-3-3-1-3, and the yellow team played a 1-4-3-1-2. Third game was 4-4-2 against 3-4-3, and then again we flipped that one, so then obviously the teams changed around and orange team played 3-4-3 against the 4-4-2, and then the final game was the 3-5-2 systems, and obviously you don't need to flip anything in that. You can just play that game straight through for 10 minutes, and obviously play those two systems against each other, because they more or less adapt to each other in the game anyway. So, but all we wanted to do is wanted to make sure that obviously we give the boys the information. I always mention at the start, look, this is how you would go into these systems from your 4-3-3, just as a kind of a reminder. Sometimes we do it where we'll start as one team off with a certain system, and we'll start in 4-3-3, and we'll get the boys to shift to make sure they understand, or make the changes themselves to make sure they understand, which is an interesting little exercise to do, but it's great, and the boys get a real good understanding for that. But in this particular case, I showed them how we do it, and then we just set them up in the systems and set them up to play. From there, we just kind of gave them a couple of kind of points of how to play out from the back, in terms of how you'd navigate kind of the different little situations that there will be. We talked a little bit about how we could press within the systems that they were playing in. But we had a few boys who were joining us for this particular training exercise who'd never done this before, so it looks a little bit bitty from some of the stuff that it usually does when we play our team against another team who does this regularly as well. But we kind of threw this together on the Thursday and Friday night because we needed to do it. So we got a few boys who were like a little bit alien to this. But from there, obviously, then we just talk about the kind of the transitions, and obviously being close to your mark in defensive transition, which naturally these systems does. That's one of the benefits to it. Obviously, using your overload that we create from changing systems in attacking transition. And then obviously in defensive organisation, we talked a little bit about pressing and obviously the distances, etc. But we mainly just wanted the boys to go out there and play and get a feel for playing in a different system. The only rule we kind of had was for half of the game, if you want to throw in your own half, then we started again with a goal kick, just for the playing out kind of scenarios. If you want to throw in the opposition's half, you could just take a throw in and obviously go and try and attack. And then after 5 minutes we changed that, so it was just a normal game and throw-ins kind of everywhere, and we did corners, etc. as well. But this is what it looks like in terms of like the boys doing it, and we just got a couple of examples of a couple of good little bits of practice within when we did the systems. So and the first one you'll see was a couple of good examples of in the 4-diamond-2 or the 4-3-1-2. So as you can see here, so just regaining the ball, good for have that +1 in regaining the ball. So the yellows are playing the 4-diamond-2. So again, just looking at the build out and stuff there. And one of the good things you'll see here is is obviously the patience to kind of obviously try and build through the pitch and play out. And obviously we wanted to get over the halfway line as much as possible. But you'll just see the various like little bits of shape in here as well. And what you'll see again here as well is so there, look, good little pass into the 6 who was unmarked, and obviously again being patient, realised he can't go forward. What you'll see a little bit here now is obviously a good little bit of play in terms of, so like if we just stop it there now, you can quite clearly see obviously we've got the back 4, you can see our 6, and you can see the 3 higher of that, so you can see the 2 sides of the diamond for the yellows, and obviously the 10, and then you've got the 2 up front. So, and again, like because we've got one of our players up front is actually naturally a winger against the 3, then when the left back gets on it here, he just makes a natural, little bit questionable offside possibly, but he makes a natural movement that winger would do, gets the ball into his feet, good little bit of 1v1 skill here, and then obviously he's away, and he ends up scoring a great goal from this. But this is perfect attacking organisation for us in terms of getting into the opposition's half from build, and then obviously getting into an area where we can score again as well. So 1-3-3-1-3, good practice little clip here again. So 3-diamond-3 again from the yellow team. So again, good for having the +1. So if we just stop it there, okay. So that was a centre back challenging one at the centre forwards. But this is another reason why you have the +1. So as you can see, the +1 here is the one that's picking the ball up in terms of the transition. So just going to use his goalkeeper again to go back to, and then we can get into our attacking organisation shape. And if I just pause it here now, what you'll see is and we do this regularly, so I know it looks a bit, so as you can see our back 3 there, so our central centre back is just going in between the 2 centre forwards to divide them and get off the shoulders, and effectively, ultimately as well, get out of the goalkeeper's way a little bit, because we trust our goalkeepers enough to play. So this will just force our number 6 here, who's just in the shot there, just to come a little bit higher up the pitch, and leave that kind of 3v2 or 4v2 if you want to call it with the goalkeeper. But we do that a lot when we're playing a 3 building out against a front 2. And we just prefer having one of those players off the shoulder, where he's then obviously the two strikers can't see the ball and all of our defenders. One of them's off the shoulder, and as you see here, he's just about to get on it here, which is almost gets past cut out. But again, a little bit of patience. Just to get it. This is our winger, so this is one of our wingers dropping down, and again he doesn't quite make a good pass here. But if he does make that pass into one of our midfielders, then obviously we're away and we've got an opportunity of getting into their back four and getting into their half and possibly into their penalty area as well. But from the Orange's point of view, in terms of playing a 4-diamond-2 against this, good little bit of anticipation here. That's why it's good in the transitions. You're close to your marks naturally, and then a good through ball and a close finish on goal. But again, this is kind of like it's a couple of good examples there of one in terms of like the playing out and not quite getting it right, but because the opposition are close to the marks, they can step on and get to the ball and create an attack as well, and that's one of the reasons why we do it in defensive transition as well. So, okay, 4-4-2, good little bit, good practice. So again, a playing out scenario. So again, this is one of our this is our central midfielder coming lower to get it, as you can see here, playing to our what would be the right attacking midfielder, who's just come on the inside and got on a different line to our fullback, and as you can see, our two centre forwards up front there, but. Again, just trying to get over the halfway line with controlled play, which we managed to do here in a second. Probably should switch the play there from our other central midfielder, but again, like we managed to get into the opposition's half, and obviously the boys win a throw-in. Another example here as well, okay, when the goalkeeper picks up possession here for the Oranges. So again, as you can see here, so we're just getting into a little bit of shape in terms of the back four. This nearest orange here is our left midfielder, probably should be a little bit higher, but as you can see here, our number 6 is in a good position as well. And again, you'll get lots of 4-3-3 kind of movements and scenarios out of this as well anyway. So, but centre back on the ball, good little link pass here in terms of into the 6 and back into the goalkeeper. Again, just keeping possession, making patient. Good little bit of movement on the inside from our left midfield player. A good little bit of patience again, and then this is one of our strikers now who's just going to make a run forward into the space. And the run's good. If it's a better ball, then obviously he's in. And then we're in that attacking organisation. We're getting into the opposition's half, but it's not quite a good ball, and he doesn't quite get control of it. But that would have been a good example of playing out. So 3-4-3, good practice. So again, this will be playing against a 4-4-2. So as you can see here, so the two centre-backs down side either side of the goalkeeper are the two centre-backs on either side of the back three, and our central centre-back again is in between those two centre-forward players. But again, one of our midfielders coming low to a bit of a bounce pass. Now this is good here in terms of like different lines again. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the picture there, our right wing-back in that 3-4-3 is out wide, and then this player coming and getting on the ball right now, just there, is our right kind of wide forward who plays on the inside as more of like a number 10 in a 3-4-3. But again, brilliant little bit of individual skill here in terms of 1v1 back pressure, which we talk about all the time. Gets himself into space here, and then obviously we managed to get into the opposition's half in a controlled state, and a good little break down the right hand side here as well, where we probably should do better on the cross and should do better on the finish. But again, now we're in a position where we can start to play in and around the opposition's penalty area, which we do here. Probably should get a chance at goal again as well, but again, because we're close and the distances are good, we're managing to maintain attacks and sustain attacks, and everyone's close to the marks. And as you can see there, our central centre-back, who's actually a number 6, is in a position there now where he can win it. He was in a position where he could switch it before. So again, it just allows us to maintain attacks. And again, you'll see a little bit of 4-3-3 in this with where our 6 is right now. So, but yeah, again, just a real good example of some play in a 3-4-3, and again, the boys been able to do it. So finally, last one. So these are the 3-5-2s in terms of the 1-3-3-1-2, and then obviously the 1-3-4-1-2, just depending on those dynamics in midfield, whether you have two attacking midfielders or you have two defensive midfielders. But again, as you can see, the back three there, so the central centre back is in between the front two. Just creating that problem there. Good little bit of movement off the side as well, where he's able to get the ball, and then obviously plays a great pass over the top. And this is one of our midfielders running forward to get on the ball as well, who ends up getting a corner. But again, attacking organisation, controlled state in the opposition's half. So again, the yellows this time. Okay, again, as you'll see, our central centre back in between those two centre forwards, just getting on the ball now. And this is a real good clip because, like I said before, like you get a lot of 4-3-3 actions when you're playing similar midfields, and you get a lot of 4-3 actions when you get your personnel right as well, in terms of like a wing back being a wide forward being a wing back, or in this case, the player who's just about to get on the ball is a full back playing a little bit higher in a wing back. But you can see here the central centre back just about to go and get on the ball again, which is really good. This is an attacking midfielder on the ball as well, and again a good ball over the top. Oh, sorry, no, in fact I got that wrong. So the player who got on the ball initially was actually, if I just wind it back a little bit, the player who got on the ball initially in that scenario just here now. So in this one now, so the player, if I just roll it on from there, sorry about that. So this player who's about to get on this ball in the position a little bit wider is actually an attacking midfielder. So when we go across the other side of the pitch in a second, when we go back to the goalkeeper and then back across the other side of the pitch from the goalkeeper into the centre back. So the player who's about to get the ball wide now here, okay, that's actually one of our attacking midfield players, and the player just coming into shot running there, if I stop it again, that's actually our left wing back. So again, we work a lot of side rotations in a 4-3-3, which is the full back, the attacking midfield player, and the wide forward. So we work with those three. It doesn't have to be always those three rotating. It can be two at a time. But as you can see here, so the boys are playing a 3-5-2. And you've got that rotation again, but again, it's just from the two players, the attacking midfield player and the fullback as well. So that's really good to see. And as he pops it on the inside here and so this is the fullback or the wing back on the ball now, and the attacking midfielder's making the run beyond. But again, brilliant little bit of movement, brilliant little bit of play. Again, thinking about attacking organisation, getting into the opposition's half in a controlled state, and we end up scoring a great goal in terms of getting into the penalty area, obviously, which is a huge part of our playing in, and then obviously a drag cross and finish on a goal there. So, but that's how we effectively would do the systems of play training practice, and we do that regularly. Like I said before, we actually do it a lot of the time with another team who practices in this. Or we just get 22 players together like we did today, and we just roll through the systems, and we let the boys play as much as possible. We give them little pointers around different little things, and it just sets us up to be able to change in a game if we need to and adapt. Okay guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any comments or questions about what we've talked about in this, especially around the systems of play, then please drop those comments below. We'd love to hear from you. You can private messages if you want as well on all of our socials, but we do like to hear from you and hear what you think about what we're talking about. If you can hit the like button, that'd be fantastic, and if you're brand new to us, please make sure you subscribe. So going into week 6 next, so we've got 2 sessions to go through in week 6. So we've got session 4, which is defensive organisation, high pressing session, which was a last minute session. We only had an hour, so it was a lot of adapting, which I've spoke about before, which I know you guys and you coaches out there will do a lot of. Session 5 we didn't manage to film, so we couldn't have the video camera in 2 places at once, so but we did do an attacking organisation session, playing in and around playing through the opposition. So I'll go through. We can go through the session with you. We just won't have any footage of it. And we also touched on defensive set plays, and then I'll give you an insight into the game plan that we were going into our first game with the boys against Avalanche here in Utah. So plenty of stuff to get stuck into in week 6, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.